In a question on odd one out, so let's go through all the sentences. So, in the next year or two, countries can reduce transmission with control measures until enough people have been vaccinated, either to achieve herd immunity or drastically reduce infection severity. So, it's in the next year or two, countries can reduce transmission. So, something about the future, I guess, right? Now, the path that SARS-CoV, just a second. So the path that SARS-CoV-2 might take to become an endemic virus is challenging to predict, but society does have some control over it. Okay. So the path that SARS-CoV-2 might take to become an endemic virus. Okay. So yes, this is also talking about reduced transmission with control. So endemic is something which is limited to a specific area. So otherwise the COVID was a pandemic disease. So the path that SARS-CoV-2 might take to become an endemic virus is challenging to predict, okay, but society does have some control over it, right? Now, countries that have begun distributing COVID-19 vaccines soon expect to see a reduction in severe illness. Okay, let's keep it on a hold. But if countries abandon strategies to reduce the spread and let the virus reign unchecked, then the darkest day of the pandemic are still ahead of us. That would significantly reduce deaths and severe disease. Now, a difficult odd one out because all the idea may seem connected to each other, but let's see what is the case. The third is an odd one out here. Now, why third is an odd one out here? Because we can, in case if we do it with the parajumble, so by theme, it cannot be done because almost all the sentences talk about the same thing. The one element that you can figure out is that because the 1, 2, 4, and 5, they're all talking about the like the future, okay? So in the next year or two, and then, but if countries abandon strategies, the darkest days of pandemic are still ahead of us, that would significantly reduce death. But whereas they say that countries that have begun distributing COVID-19 vaccines, so this is something that they're doing it right now. So the one way to look at this odd one out is on the basis of the timeline or the chronological sense, but let's see through it parajumble sequence. So two is but obvious an opening sentence because the path that SARS-CoV-2 might take to become an endemic virus is challenging to predict, but society does have some control over it. And what is the control? Is that in the next year or two, countries can reduce transmission with control. So that is a control measures until enough people have been vaccinated, either to achieve herd immunity or drastically reduce infection severity. Okay. Now that would significantly reduce deaths and severe disease. Okay, so once they are drastically reduced infection severity and they have achieved herd immunity, so that would significantly reduce deaths and severe disease. And then, but if countries abandon strategies to reduce the spread and let the virus reign unchecked, then the darkest days of the pandemic are still ahead of us, right? Whereas this, that countries that have been distributing COVID-19 vaccines soon expect to see a reduction in severe illness. So this is talking about the near or the recent response that you can see in the COVID-19 distribution of the vaccines and the reduction in the severe illness. Whereas all of them talks about what could happen in the future, okay, and how they can actually make this pandemic virus an endemic one. So that is the reason that the three is an odd one out. I hope you managed this question.